Good morning, class. I thought we would discuss a little bit about Guy de Maupassant's short fiction, The Necklace. That was one of the readings for this week, and we also have the Mary Shelley reading, both of which you will have really a 10-question quiz that's going to be due by the end of the week, Sunday by 11:59 to be specific. Generally, there's going to be, 5 questions from one story and then 5 questions from the other. So it's really, if you read both stories, if you looked at the notes, if you watched the videos, it should be a relatively, I hope, easy quiz. It's basically to see, did you read both stories? Did you understand what you've read? That type deal. There's really no trick questions to these 10-question quizzes that I usually provide. It's really just, one, it's there for a, are you present in the course? Have you been looking at this stuff for week one? Have you been watching the videos? Have you read these short stories? That type deal. So it should be, I hope, a relatively easy A, I hope, for everybody. So we will look at or talk a little bit about The Necklace. I will probably come back a little bit later and give you some information about the Mary Shelley story. But right now, let's focus on the Necklace, and I'm going to just talk a little bit briefly about some of the things that are, what's going on. So basically, The Necklace is a iconic, ironic story about the distinction between appearance versus reality. It was written in 1884, and when we start looking at some of these characters, the character analysis, some of the summaries as it relates to some of these characters, we realize we have Matilde, Lucille, the greedy wife of a clerk who seeks wealth and believes it will bring her happiness. She remains miserable in her middle class status, strives to appear wealthy and glamorous for a fancy party, right? She borrows jewels from her rich friend and wears a beautiful gown. But her happiness is fleeting when she loses the necklace and is forced to spend the rest of her life paying off the debt to replace it. So she's she misplaced, or she lost this necklace. So now she's having to spend the rest of her life paying it off to replace it. Then we have her husband, Monsieur Lucille, is completely content as a clerk. He enjoys his humble lifestyle and is generous, quite the opposite from his wife, Matilde. Then we have Madame Forestier, the wealthy friend from whom our lead protagonist borrows the diamond necklace. Madame Forestier is the object of Matilde's jealousy, right? Because she's the one that carries sort of this richness, this affluent, not only manners but behaviors, right? She has this gold, or she has this necklace, she has this jewels. And then we have the Rampisseurs, the couple who threw the fancy party that both the husband and wife attended. George is the Minister of Public Instruction, and he is, the husband's boss here. So when we look at the actual plot summary, right, the whole what's going on in the story to sort of get a gist, this could be helpful if you hadn't really read it yet. So the story is set in 19th century France, where the main characters are a middle-class couple. The wife strives to appear wealthy, which she equates with happiness. So here again, we have this theme, and we see this theme a lot, especially even today. We still see this theme of sort of kind of keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak, where you may be envy or jealous of somebody that has um, more things, more material things, more wealth than you do. And you think that, oh man, if I could just win the lottery, or if I can just, have this high paying job that pays me $25 an hour or $15 an hour, or whatever the case may be, if you're in a higher state financially, that all of that wealth, all of that materialistic things would bring you happiness. And a lot of times we realize, sometimes after a famous person has died, that we sort of wonder what in the heck has happened in this person's life for them to either commit suicide or to have a really bad drug overdose, or lose. How are they losing their property? Why are they filing for bankruptcy? They've been in the public eye. They've been a movie star or a music star. They should have all the money in the world, right? And then we realize that just because you have all the money in the world and you're wealthy and you have a big mansion and a nice car and fancy clothes, that a lot of times the person is hiding deep depression, right? They're not as happy as they appear to be. One really, I guess, popular example of that would be probably Britney Spears at this point. To see where she came from, what she became, and then where she's at currently with some of her legal trouble with her father and that type of stuff. So she borrows, and this is our protagonist, a necklace from her friend, Forestier, to wear at a special party. But then she loses the necklace. The couple must come up with 34,000 francs. Let's see if that's right. To replace it. I'm not sure if that's really how you would say that. So let's see. Yeah, francs. I was right on that. Okay. It's kind of early today while I'm trying to do this, so just bear with me. This results in a 10 years of hard work to pay off this new necklace. So she borrows this friend's necklace, she loses it, and now, because it was a very expensive necklace, she's having to pay it off, right? She's in debt to this, her friend, I guess, at this point. When the women run into each other, Madame Forestier does not recognize the much older looking Matilda after her years of toil. Forestier reveals in a dramatic twist ending that the old necklace was a fake called a paste, worth no more than 500 francs. So that's sort of the twist here. Our author, he likes to use some of these twist endings or plot twists, definitely in a dramatic fashion. So that would be sort of, that would be like you going out, you borrowed something, let's say you borrowed something from your parents, or you borrowed something that was really expensive from a friend, you lost it. The friendship was sort of strained. You try to avoid the person, but at the same time, you're wanting to do right by the person and pay back what you lost. And then all of a sudden you meet up with that old friend at one point, and they, you start to talk, maybe you're starting to get, starting to communicate a little bit more. And she basically says, hey, or he says, hey, whoever you borrowed that expensive item from, you just wasted 10 years of your life trying to pay back something that really wasn't as much as it seemed. It was a fake, or it was a counterfeit. It wasn't really the real deal. So you got to sort of put yourself in Tilde's position at that point. She's been, working to death basically for 10 years to try to pay something back that was only worth 500 francs. And I think in your notes, there's a equivalent, and we may look at that real quick. There's equivalent of the francs to US dollars. So let me see if I can find that. Here it is. So she was she was working for 10 years for those 3,600 francs, and as you can tell, equivalent of that would be over, close to 7,500 US dollars. And she only really had to pay back the 500 francs after her friend basically told her, hey, it was a paste, it was a fake, which only, it's a little over $100. So one, you gotta feel for our protagonist, because you're paying this debt for 10 years. You're trying to pay this, try to pay back this money, and it wasn't even worth $7,500 or 3,600 or 36,000 francs. So we can kind of maybe relate to that to some degree about having to pay something. You're overcharged something, not realizing it's not the real deal. Especially when you think about, if we take this to more modern times, maybe that new iPhone or that new tablet or whatever, it's running at X amount of dollars. You realize you borrowed one maybe from a friend. The phone got messed up, but then it comes back. Your friend says, "Oh, that's just a cheap ripoff. It looks like it's the real deal, but it really isn't." And only, instead of paying $600 for it, I only paid $200 for it. So you're trying to figure out, well, what the heck am I doing here, trying to, spend my time to pay this back if it's only worth $200? I could have easily, worked just enough to pay you the $200. Why am I paying you extra? Some of the genre and theme, right? When you think of the necklace, yes, it's a short story, it's fictional. It's really goes into the subgenre of realism. Some of y'all probably, if you took a American Lit course at some point, you've probably heard of the term realism. It also includes irony for its surprise ending, morality tale for important lessons it offers the readers. So we're supposed to really learn lessons from this story. Some of the major themes that could be something you focus on as we get closer to that first essay, that fiction essay. And we'll be talking a little bit more about the fiction exam and the fiction essay during week 2. One important theme in this particular short story is reality versus appearance, right? This theme that things aren't as they seem plays out on many levels throughout the story. So kind of keep that in mind while you're reading this. The most obvious is the original fake diamond necklace, which appears genuine and valuable, but is actually a convincing imitation. It's not the real deal, right? The same is true of Matilde's masquerading in this appearance of wealth, while in reality, she's middle class, jealous, and ugly on the inside. So she has all these emotions, right? We have the fake diamond necklace, the material, tangible thing that she can sort of touch, but also, deep down, she's really, she's trying to be something that she's not. She's trying to be more wealthy. She's trying to have that appearance of her friend. And, in reality, she's just jealous because she's middle class. Her beauty is only, it stops at the skin level, because she has a lot of resentment and a lot of ugliness inside, because she wants to be rich and wealthy and have all the finer things in life, because she thinks it's going to bring her happiness. And it really doesn't, right? Especially when she's starting to sort of slave over, oh, I lost this, what she thought was an important, really wealthy necklace, and then she's having to go back and spend time and now money to try to pay back a cheap imitation of it. Probably, again, going back to the moral lesson, what you really probably should learn after reading this short story is that beauty is only skin deep. It's only skin deep. Some of us learn that out the hard way. Some of us are already taught that coming through the age of becoming an adult. This proverbial expression is the story's main lesson, meaning that a pleasing appearance is no guide to character. So you can have all the money in the world, and we know some of these folks that have all the money in the world. We've seen the famous, singers, actors. You may know somebody in your family that is pretty affluent and well off, um, but their character is questionable. They're not necessarily the nicest, kindest, loving person deep down. They only care about the appearance of looking important or the appearance of being wealthy. Hey, I got more money than you. That must mean I'm better than you. That type attitude, which a lot of times it's not always the case. Uh, Sometimes the poorest people are the kind hardest people. They're the caring people. They're the ones that love you. Those are the ones that will stick by you no matter whether you have money or you don't have money. They don't look at materialistic things as being the true moral compass, I guess you could say, of a good person. Because in the end, when we all eventually have to realize that our life is coming to an end, it doesn't matter whether you have infinite amount of money or no money. You're not going to be able to take that money with you to the grave. You're not going to be able to take it to whatever afterlife you believe in. It disappears for you at that point. You can't take your mansion, you can't take your Corvette, but some people have to learn it the hard way. Some people think that money truly will not only buy you happiness, it'll buy you love. Thinking about the Beatles song. Um, there's another good, probably 80s movie you might have heard, you might have seen at some point called Can't Buy Me Love, which in a lot of ways has some of these same themes going on. You might want to look it up on YouTube, maybe to look at some of the clips. Um, there's other movies out there that you could probably bring a lot of these themes and stuff to light. Um, but it is a good moral lesson to learn. Uh, Another theme is greed versus uh, generosity. Matilde is filled with discontent, greed, and appearances, while her husband is content and generous in his station in life. So we really have this foil between husband and wife. The husband is pretty content. He's happy with how his life, his status is going. He's not poor, but he's not rich, right? He's right there in middle class, pretty much where a lot of us probably are at this point in life. We're not really poor, but we're not really rich. We're sort of in the middle. Um, and a lot of times, that's where most of our lives are going to be. We may dip up a little bit and dip down a little bit, but for the most part, if you're working, if you got a good job, if you're honest, right, you're probably going to have a really content middle class life. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're able to pay your bills, provide for your family, your kids, and still have enough money to sort of enjoy things that you want to do, family time, vacations, without going broke or without trying to, oh, I got to have the newest iPhone or I have to have the newest car, the newest house. Um, if you're not really one that thinks that material things and a lot of money is really going to bring up your status, and then a lot of us are just happy and content with where we're at. So that's sort of her husband at this point. He works. He has enough to do what he needs to do. He doesn't seem like he needs to be overly flashy or show how much money he has to remain happy. But when we look at his wife generally just doesn't like her life because I guess she feels that she's poorer than everybody else. She just doesn't like the middle class life. And it's very interesting too to remember that this story was written in 1884. So I mean, we still have people now in the 21st century that hate the middle class discontent, greed, and appearances of their life. So this is something that sort of transcends time. It's a theme that is there. Um, if you think about, and some of y'all might have heard or watched this movie from the 80s, Wall Street, the whole deal, greed is good, that type deal. We see that a lot in our protagonist here. She thinks greed is good. And a lot of times, most of the time, greed is bad for folks. It changes not only their appearance, but it changes their whole demeanor, their whole outlook on life. Because once they sort of tasted or thought they tasted that fine appearance of wealth, or that fine, dining of wealth and happiness, once they lose it, they don't know how to act, right? Sometimes folks get suicidal. Some folks get really depressed if they had X amount of dollars, they lived in a big house, they had a big car, and all of a sudden all that stuff just went away, and now they're left live either a reasonable in their means type life, and a lot of folks just can't handle that. It's sad, but a lot of folks can't. We also have this, again, probably one of the major themes would be this wealth versus happiness. These two conditions do not necessarily correlate, though people who envy wealthy people tend to think they do. Matilda is miserable, striving to be wealthy, which she believes would bring her true happiness. Ironically, she had to assume the life of a hard-working, poor woman, losing all outward appearances of her beauty or wealth in order to purchase a replacement necklace, again, that we will learn from her friend that was really a fake, because of her greed. Her condition was even worse than before. So she works herself all up to be this person that she's not, loses this, what we learn later would be a fake necklace, and then she turns into the very woman that she doesn't want to be, but because she's thinking she's got to pay all this money back to her friend to replace the necklace, she actually loses a lot of her natural beauty and whatever middle class wealth that she has, because she was trying to keep up with, like I said earlier, the Joneses. She was trying to be somebody that she wasn't, and in the end, she totally became somebody different, something less than what she was before. She went from that middle class life to more of a, like a peasant life now, because she's working so darn hard to pay off something that really wasn't worth as much as it seemed to be. So again, there was, that appearance, reality, right? Reality versus appearance. The reality is that the necklace wasn't worth as much as she thought it was. She learns that the hard way after, sort of slaving for those 10 years to gain all of that money back to pay her friend, only for her friend to say, hey, you basically just had to pay me, a little over $100 US. And that would have, called it even. Because that expensive necklace that I had that you thought was really wealthy and that you thought was really expensive really was just a fake. Some of the literary devices that our author uses here is, again, the plot twist, the twist endings. This is a technique in which authors make radical changes in direction of the expected outcome of a story. Usually springing it on the reader near the end of the story, which we see. The result is a gotcha moment for the characters and the reader, though sometimes one will learn of it before the other. When the reader learns the surprise before the characters is called dramatic irony. So if you looked at some of those, I have a link, I believe, literary elements and techniques that you might want to look at, because when we talk about these short stories over the next, basically the next month, there's going to be some key terms. Some of them should be familiar, especially from other English classes. Some of them may be new. But this is sort of the jargon of a literary or scholarly critic. This is some of the terms that you want to, kind of keep in mind as it relates to maybe studying for quizzes or discussion posts, or when you get ready to write that first essay, when you're studying for that first exam. This is how we create dialogue. When we start talking about some of this literature, we can talk a little bit more freely about what a dramatic irony is, or situation irony. We know the lingo, we know the jargon. Um, that we're able to talk back and forth really without having to explain all the terms, because you're looking at this literary list of elements and techniques and sort of putting it to memory. Foreshadowing is also an important literary device that we see in this story. When our author here writes that a new necklace seemed to be exactly like the old one, he does not say it is exactly the same, right? So that's a little bit of foreshadowing, because it seemed. The reader knows something is wrong before we discover the truth. In the end, another example early in the story, when Maupassant reveals she was unhappy as if she had really fallen from a higher station, which foreshadows that they fall from middle class into poverty later in the story. And it's all because over this fake necklace that she thinks is more expensive than it was. So she spends 10 years basically in poverty to try to pay it back. So in a lot of ways, that is this story in a nutshell. It's not that long, as you can tell. A lot of it's in dialogue. Pay a close attention. I know there's some questions here, but that's really a good thing to sort of look at and kind of test your comprehension, that type deal. You don't necessarily have to answer these questions at the end. Again, it's a comprehension check. It may be helpful if you want to answer those, and send me an email and say, hey, am I going on the right track? Can you check these? I can do that for you. But for the most part, I want you just to go through the story and read it. Take your own notes on it. If that's good to annotate. You're going to see over here, closely read, annotate. Highlight particular passages or quotes or that type of stuff that either interest you or you want to look, learn more about, that type deal. Make sure that you go through some of these notes, the prizzies. They are helpful. They're not going to replace you from actually reading the story. Meaning, if you just read these and go to Spark Notes or something, you probably may or may not do as well on the quiz as you would had you actually read the story. A lot of these stories are short enough that you can read them multiple times. I probably would do that, especially if you're thinking about writing on one of these when it comes to our fiction essays that we're going to be talking about next week. So just enjoy the reading. I hope you can enjoy it. Some of y'all might have read this maybe before. Don't get so caught up on the French language, because it is, right? Guy de Maupassant is a French writer. You don't necessarily have to have French to be able to read the story, because it's in modern English. It's been translated, so it'll be easier for you to read. But just let me know if there's anything else that I can help you with as it relates to this particular story. And as I said earlier, I will get some information up about the Mary Shelley story as soon as I can. So I hope everybody has a good Tuesday, and I will see you soon.